If you thought things were going to slow down for the Dallas Cowboys after the season wrapped up, think again, because the headlines coming out of the NFL Combine have this team right back in the spotlight. There is optimism in some areas, tension in others, and a few storylines that feel like they are quietly building toward a dramatic summer. And it all starts with some injury news that is not ideal, but also not catastrophic. One of the more underrated developments involves a key defender who quietly underwent surgery to repair a torn hip labrum. What makes this situation fascinating is that he reportedly played through the issue during the season. That alone tells you something about his toughness and commitment to staying on the field. The procedure happened roughly 5 weeks ago, which places it back in January. In terms of timing, that is actually encouraging because it gives him a real shot to be ready when training camp opens. He is expected to miss most of the offseason program, and that matters because this defensive room is not exactly loaded with depth. If he were to miss training camp as well, then we would be having a very different conversation about stability. For now, the belief inside the building is that he will be back when it counts most. Now let us shift to what could become the dominant storyline of the offseason: the contract situation surrounding George Pickens. The silence has been loud. There have not been substantial negotiations, no major progress, no sense that both sides are pushing aggressively toward a long-term agreement. And that is where the concern starts creeping in. We have seen this pattern before. When early opportunities to lock up a core player are not seized, the process tends to drag. The Cowboys appear comfortable letting this play out, possibly even prepared to have him operate under the franchise tag if necessary. The question is not whether Pickens deserves a long-term deal. The real question is about timing and leverage. From the team's perspective, there is no immediate urgency. They hold the tag. They control the calendar. They can wait to see whether he reports to off-season workouts, which begin in April, just ahead of the draft. But from the player's side, every delay can feel like a message. When extensions are priorities, they usually move faster than this. The longer this sits unresolved, the more it feels destined to stretch into July, right up against the deadline for franchise tag extensions. Financially, the Cowboys could have lowered the immediate cap hit by securing a long-term deal earlier. Instead, keeping him on the tag keeps that number heavy on the books. There is also the reality that no team is likely to surrender 2 first-round picks and offer a massive contract north of $40 million per year. That kind of external pressure simply is not expected to materialize. So we are left in a standoff where Dallas does not feel rushed, and Pickens likely feels he has earned more security. History tells us these situations rarely stay quiet forever. While that negotiation simmers, another contract story is trending in a far more positive direction. The buzz around Brandon Aubrey reached a boiling point recently with reports suggesting tense exchanges and massive salary demands. But as more clarity emerges, the reality seems much calmer. The Cowboys have already put forward an offer that would reset the kicker market, and they reportedly improved that proposal after the season. The idea that negotiations are hostile appears to have been exaggerated. The real debate is not whether Aubrey will become the highest-paid kicker in the league. It is about how far above the current benchmark he will land. Right now, that benchmark belongs to Harrison Butker at $6.4 million per year. That number is expected to be surpassed. $10 million annually, however, feels unrealistic given the mechanisms available to the team. Dallas can apply a restricted free agent tender if needed, and they also have the franchise tag option down the road. Those layers of control naturally limit how extreme the final number can climb. A deal in the range of $7 to $8 million per season feels far more plausible, especially when guaranteed money is factored in. Structuring the contract creatively could also help lower the immediate cap hit, which is critical given the broader financial puzzle the front office is trying to solve. Because make no mistake, the cap situation is tight on paper. As it stands, the Cowboys project to be significantly over the salary cap once the franchise tag for Pickens is accounted for. But that headline number is misleading. This front office has navigated these waters before, and restructures are the lifeboat. Converting base salary into signing bonus for players like Dak Prescott CeeDee Lamb, and Tyler Smith can instantly create tens of millions in space. These are not radical moves. They are routine tools in modern roster management. The more complex decision revolves around Kenny Clark. His contract presents both opportunity and risk. There is a roster bonus approaching that becomes guaranteed soon, which creates a natural deadline for action. A simple restructure could free up close to $10 million, but because there are no void years left on his deal, the flexibility is not unlimited. An extension, on the other hand, could push that savings closer to $15 million, depending on structure. That kind of relief would dramatically improve Dallas' spending power as free agency unfolds. Releasing him is technically possible since there is no guaranteed money left, but that outcome is not viewed as likely. The expectation around the league is that an extension is the preferred path. The Cowboys invested heavily in their defensive core, and moving on abruptly would create another hole to fill. There's also the broader context of prior personnel decisions, including the high-profile move involving Micah Parsons, which already shifted the defensive identity in a major way. Stability now carries value. If an extension with Clark is finalized and the expected restructures are executed, the Cowboys could maneuver themselves into a position with roughly $50 million in workable cap space, even with Pickens on the tag. That flexibility would not just cover in-house priorities like Aubrey's situation, but also allow them to be selective and aggressive in free agency. The key is sequencing. Every contract decision affects the next one, and timing matters just as much as dollars. What makes this offseason compelling is that it is not defined by one singular crisis. Instead, it is a series of interconnected negotiations, health updates, and financial recalibrations. Some moves feel inevitable, others feel like ticking clocks, and a few could still surprise us. And as these dominoes begin to fall, the balance between patience and urgency inside that front office will shape the direction of the entire season ahead. As all of this unfolds, what stands out most about the Dallas Cowboys right now is that they are operating with calculated patience. That can be frustrating for a fan base that wants immediate answers, especially when big names are involved. But internally, this feels like a front office that believes it holds leverage in multiple negotiations. The challenge is making sure that patience does not turn into procrastination, because in the National Football League, waiting too long can raise prices instead of lowering them. Take the broader salary cap strategy as an example. On the surface, being more than $50 million over the projected limit sounds alarming. But the reality is that the Cowboys structured several contracts specifically to allow off-season adjustments. Converting base salaries into bonuses for cornerstone players is not a desperate act. It is part of the blueprint. The key difference this year is the number of simultaneous decisions that need to be aligned. Every restructure pushes money into future seasons. Every extension reshapes the financial timeline. That is manageable when the roster core is stable, but it becomes delicate when multiple stars are either on tags or seeking new deals. The dynamic with George Pickens continues to hover over everything. If he does not report to off-season workouts, the narrative intensifies. If he shows up and participates fully, it changes the tone overnight. That is why April could be more important than many realize. The organization may be comfortable riding the franchise tag into the summer, but a visible holdout would instantly escalate pressure. The Cowboys have seen how quickly contract stories can dominate headlines, and this market does not offer much quiet space when star players are involved. At the same time, there is a belief that Dallas understands the long-term value of maintaining offensive continuity. Quarterback stability paired with elite wide receiver production is not easy to replace. That reality gives Pickens strong negotiating ground, even if the team technically controls his short-term status. It becomes a chess match between securing cost certainty now versus risking a larger bill later. The front office has to decide whether they are buying peace of mind or gambling on market conditions, staying favorable. On the defensive side, the situation with Kenny Clark is just as critical, though it carries a different tone. Extensions for defensive tackles do not usually dominate national conversations, but inside the building, they can define flexibility. If Dallas locks him in on a multi-year structure that lowers the immediate cap hit, it sends a message that they are doubling down on their interior presence. It would also free enough room to address depth at other positions, something that becomes essential over the course of a long season. There's also the psychological component. When veteran leaders receive extensions, it reinforces trust in the locker room. Players notice who gets rewarded and how the organization handles business. Stability breeds buy-in. If Clark's deal is finalized smoothly, it contrasts sharply with the uncertainty surrounding Pickens, and that balance might actually help keep the roster aligned emotionally. Then there's Brandon Aubrey, whose situation feels closest to resolution. The expectation around the league is that he will reset the kicker market in a controlled way, not in a dramatic $10 million per year explosion, but in a measured step beyond the current top salary. That matters because special teams reliability has been a major strength. Locking in consistency at kicker eliminates one potential variable in tight games. And in a division that frequently comes down to narrow margins, those details matter. The bigger picture is this: Dallas is not tearing anything down. This is not a rebuild. It is an attempt to recalibrate around a competitive core while managing escalating costs. That is a much harder task than starting from scratch. Every move has to protect both the present and the future. When you extend a player today, you are committing to how your cap will look 2 and 3 seasons from now. When you push money forward, you are betting that performance will justify the burden later. Free agency will reveal how aggressive the Cowboys truly intend to be. If restructures create the projected flexibility, expect selective additions rather than headline splashes. Depth along the defensive front, reinforcements in the secondary, and possibly another rotational weapon on offense could all be explored. But none of that happens cleanly until the internal contracts are addressed. What makes this moment fascinating is that none of the storylines exist in isolation. Pickens' tag influences cap space. Cap space influences Clark's extension. Clark's extension influences how bold they can be in March. Aubrey's deal affects the remaining buffer. It is a domino effect where one agreement unlocks the next. And through it all, the Cowboys are trying to avoid repeating past mistakes where negotiations dragged in a training camp and created unnecessary distractions. The goal appears to be maintaining leverage without inviting chaos. Whether that balance holds will depend on how quickly these conversations transition from quiet to finalized. Because once the league calendar accelerates, patience becomes a luxury that few contenders can afford. Ultimately, this phase of the offseason is about alignment. Alignment between player value and team vision. Alignment between immediate competitiveness and long-term sustainability. Alignment between financial engineering and on-field identity. The Cowboys have navigated complex cap situations before, but each year presents new variables and new personalities. With health questions to monitor, contract negotiations to finalize, and strategic cap maneuvers to execute, the margin for error is slim. The coming stretch will reveal just how cohesive the plan truly is, and whether the organization can translate calculated financial moves into tangible momentum once the pads go on and the real battles begin. Because every decision made in these quiet weeks echoes loudly when the season finally arrives and the spotlight intensifies under the weight of expectations that never seem to fade in Dallas. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Whispers around the league have grown louder in recent hours, and the name at the center of the buzz is QUAY Walker. According to sources close to the situation, the explosive linebacker is set to sign with the Dallas Cowboys, a move that could quietly reshape the balance of power on the defensive side of the ball. While nothing has been officially confirmed, the mere possibility has already sparked intense debate among executives, coaches, and fans. Walker has long been viewed as one of the most physically gifted defenders of his generation, blending rare speed with downhill aggression. His presence in the middle of a defense changes how offenses call plays, forcing quicker decisions and limiting space over the middle. That is precisely why the rumor stings so deeply for the Green Bay Packers, who believe they had built a long-term core around his versatility and leadership potential. For Dallas, this alleged signing feels less like a routine roster move and more like a calculated strike. The Cowboys' defense has been effective, but insiders suggest the front office has been searching for a tone setter, someone capable of elevating the unit from solid to intimidating. Walker fits that profile perfectly. If he arrives, coordinators could unlock new schemes, sending pressure from unexpected angles and trusting him to clean up mistakes behind an aggressive front. Around the league, rival scouts are already adjusting their evaluations. Some believe Dallas is positioning itself for a deeper, more physical identity, while others see this as a direct attempt to neutralize high-powered offenses that thrive on quick passes and crossing routes. There is also speculation about the locker room impact, as Walker's intense playing style could influence younger defenders and raise overall accountability. Until pen meets paper, it remains rumor and speculation. Still, the idea of QUAY Walker in a Cowboys uniform is enough to send a ripple through the NFL, hinting at a defensive transformation that could redefine expectations long before the season's story is fully written. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.